Spotlighting Hawaii's leaders.
We want to bring in Governor David Ige.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Lieutenant Governor, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us. Mayor Derek Kawakami.
Thank you so much, Senator, for being here.
Spotlighting the issues.
Where is the virus right now in our community?
How much is this overall going to cost the state?
How are you responding to the community's concerns? Talk about the level of citations that you guys are writing.
Spotlight Hawaii with Yanji Denise and Ryan Kalei Suji on the digital platforms of the Honolulu Star-Advertiser. This episode of Spotlight Hawaii is brought to you by Chaminade University.
Well, aloha, and thanks so much for starting your week out with us. I'm Ryan Kalei Suji, joined by Yanji Denise, and this is Spotlight Hawaii on the platforms of the Honolulu Star-Advertiser. And today, Yanji, we are spotlighting higher education in our state.
That's right. We are taking a trip over to UH Manoa to speak with the president of the University of Hawaii. That, of course, is David Lassner. He's joined us throughout the pandemic, and it's so good to see you. From the last time we spoke and now, it sounds like things have really improved on campus. Tell us how things are going.
Things are actually going great. We're extremely proud, first, that everybody on our campuses has remained pretty safe. We were safe through the last year and even through the Delta spike as our communities experienced increasing cases, hospitalizations, even sadly deaths. We did not see that commensurate increase on our campuses. And I think it's a credit to our students, our faculty, our staff for maintaining safe precautions. And throughout all that, we've been continuing to educate our students, and that's our most important mission.
If you can update us on what the policy will be moving forward as you enter into the spring semester with vaccinated and unvaccinated students, and also distance learning and how things are going there. What is the plan moving forward now living with COVID-19 with the vaccination in place?
Yeah, the Delta surge really threw us for a loop for this fall. So we're more online right now than we had expected and hoped to be. And we also know that once we start a semester, we can't easily say, the numbers are good, let's bring everybody back in person, because they could be living on Maui and did make arrangements to live on campus to attend classes in person at Manoa. They may even be in California and attending classes online right now. We are planning for significantly more in-person education for the spring semester. We have announced the vaccination requirement for our students, for our faculty, for our staff who will be on campus. All of the details of implementing that are in place, including work with the three unions who represent our employees, students, in order to register for classes that include an in-person component for spring, and registration begins to take place this month for spring. They must be able to show that they will be vaccinated or have an approved exemption. So we're starting to enforce that from the get-go so that students understand the requirements. We will continue to have online options, and I'd say that's one of the things we learned through this pandemic is how we can teach and learn at a distance online, and also how people can work online. But we do expect lots more people on all of our campuses across the state in the spring.
And actually, there's a question here from Christine Donnelly. She writes a Kokua column, and it's my follow-up as well. Can you estimate what percentage of the classes will be held in person in the spring semester? I know you said that currently, thanks to Delta and other uncertainties, you had more online than in person. But what do you think that ratio will be come the spring?
It's really different. It's been interesting, campus by campus and program by program. So we do have the data as to how things are scheduled. One of the advances we made during COVID was we now detail for each of our courses the modality, and we make it really clear to students what they're signing up for. At Manoa, for example, we estimate about 80% of the courses will involve in-person instruction. But remember, we offer a substantial number of intentional distance learning programs. So those do not require in-person instruction. At the other extreme, I'd say UH West Oahu, before the pandemic, 45% of their courses were online, and they have an older than average population compared to our other campuses, and they have a large number of graduates, typically 50 to 100 graduates each year on Maui alone from West Oahu. So generically, I didn't add up that number, but we can provide it on a campus basis, and all of our campus leaders know their numbers and are tracking it. What we're really trying to move back to is offerings that are driven by the needs of students. And what we know, and our students are telling us, is they want some options for online courses, even if they are, for example, at Manoa or Hilo, living in our student residences, our dorms. They might want to take a mix of 4 in-person and 1 online just to fit their lifestyle and schedules. So it's a new world post-pandemic for us. And that's in addition to the students who really want fully online courses, who tend to be working adults who really want to prepare for better jobs and upskilling themselves to do better in the workforce and in the economy.
Yeah, and just to follow up on that, I got to imagine that's going to really change the structure in which classes and interaction are held. I mean, when you think about some students who maybe have to go back home to for a family gathering or of some sort, they could still essentially be attending classes, or student athletes who are on the road for a long period of time may still actually be able to participate in classes. How do you think this integration of distance learning and virtual learning is going to be moving forward, considering all these possible scenarios?
Yeah, that's exactly right. One of the investments we made with the federal funds that were available to us was in our classroom technology, and we call them high flex is one term. We call them here and there rather than here or there kinds of classrooms, where we can actually serve a mix of in-person students and remote students via Zoom. And this is not with everybody sitting in front of their own laptop. This is actually a faculty member teaching to a classroom with other students who might be somewhere else, whether at home or, as you say, Ryan, on the road, maybe with some flexibility from week to week, depending on their needs. So we're really trying to look at the silver linings out of the pandemic and the things that we've learned from the forced intensive use of technology, and which of those we want to keep. Another example is we put in place kind of an emergency COVID telework policy for our employees. And as we come out of the need to do this because of COVID, we're realizing that, we have opportunities for more of our employees to be really effective working from home, maybe not full-time, maybe part-time, maybe 1 day a week, 2 days a week, maybe dealing with family emergencies, same kind of situation. And we want to be a flexible employer, and we think we can ensure that our employees are accountable and effective without coming into the office every day.
In the last legislative session, in the 11th hour, the legislature dealt the university quite a blow when it came to the annual budget. Can you tell us how you've been able to absorb and deal with those budget cuts, because they were fairly significant?
Yeah, they were significant, and they caught us by surprise, frankly, at the end of the session. That said, we were certainly preparing throughout the year for budget cuts. I mean, we're not oblivious to what happened to the state economy. We're very grateful for the support that we get from the legislature for public higher education in the state. So, we will deal with the budget cuts, no question. And we're looking at a variety of ways that we can do that. Most of our operating budget is in personnel, employees, and it's not easy to reduce employee counts in a short period of time in a heavily collective bargaining environment for all kinds of reasons. And frankly, we don't want to have to lay people off. So we're using a strategy of a lot of attrition, replacing employees where it's really essential for the highest priority needs of our state. What has been working in our favor is, as soon as the pandemic hit and we could see the economic impact when tourism basically disappeared in the state, we knew what was going to happen. I mean, this was not rocket science to see the impact. We're actually the first part of the state to implement an internal freeze before the governor did it on the state agencies in the executive branch. We froze positions, major purchases, major new contracts, and really limited those things to what was essential throughout last year. So as a result, we actually accumulated cash balances in our special and revolving funds. We also didn't know exactly what the federal government would do, but the federal support through those 3 relief acts were extraordinarily helpful, both for our students, tens of millions of dollars in aid to our students who are suffering, but also large amounts of money for us to cover all of the direct costs of the pandemic to us. So the technology investments that I mentioned, we were able to do at federal expense, losses in revenue in certain programs where dorms were at best half capacity. We were able to make up those revenue losses to address our cuts as well with the federal support. That's exactly what it was there for. So the hit wasn't as bad as it might have been. We maintained enrollment. In fact, enrollment at UH Manoa, we had a great year, largest freshman class in our history. The hit was very small last fall. So we're holding up, I think, pretty well. We can't make all of the investments we would like to make just yet. We've got a lot of people unhappy that their requests for filling positions or expenses are not getting approved. But we are financially healthy and we are meeting the primary needs of the state, we believe. And we're committed to continue to make investments in the things that this state needs most from us now, especially as we come through the pandemic, educating more students, addressing Hawaii's workforce needs, being sure we can do our part to stimulate the economy and create more high quality jobs for the people of Hawaii, and continue to invest in our research and extramural funding enterprise, which is so important economically across the state, but also to really keep a focus on solving Hawaii's problems with the intellectual capacity of our faculty and our students.
And so moving forward, as the legislative session is a few months away from starting up once again, is that a conversation that you have moving forward, is trying to get some of those monies that were cut restored back into the budget? Or is it moving forward just operating with what you have now, recognizing that it might not come back?
It's a little of both. We will be asking for restoration of the cuts, subject to, we will be at our Board of Regents actually on Thursday, asking them to approve our budget request, which is essentially restoration. The only new funding that we're asking for is we've got a beautiful new creative media building at UH West Oahu. That building will be a resource for the entire UH system, not just the West Oahu campus. Our Manoa students are anxious to be able to get to work in that building, and we're working out shuttle plans. Absent a rail system that connects Manoa and West Oahu, which we would love to see, but we will put shuttles in place for our students to be able to get at it. But what we actually need is that building is so state of the art that we need people who can actually operate the technology in that building. It's like nothing we've ever had in the university before. So we're hoping the legislature will be willing to help us with that. Other than that, we are hoping to get some of our budget restored, but we are also prepared to manage with the best they can do. We know they have many demands on them, given the cuts that took place last year. We want to be reasonable about that as well. We're not demanding, but we are requesting respectfully. We think we are part of Hawaii's economic recovery, as are many other parts of state government that were devastated by the cuts that were put in place last year. So we're doing a little bit of both on that.
I want to get your take on a conversation that's happening right now in regards to Aloha Stadium. 3 governors, as I'm sure you're aware, Abercrombie, Wahe'e, and Ben Cayetano have all said that that area around Aloha Stadium should not actually include a stadium in its revitalization plan, but instead should focus on housing. Does, the university obviously, if there is a stadium there, would have games there, but does the university need Aloha Stadium now that you have been having games on campus? Has it changed your thinking at all in terms of if that's something that the university actually needs?
So I mean, I'm incredibly proud of our team that did what they did with the Clarence T.C. Ching Field. It's beautiful, but it only holds 9,000 people. The NCAA says we have to average 15,000 at our FBS level. It is not a luxurious facility. It was assembled quickly and temporarily. We were ready to play on September 2nd. Unfortunately, COVID did not permit us to do so, but that facility is not a permanent place for FBS Division I football. We are working with a variety of stakeholders. It takes real money to create a suitable facility for Division I football. Right now, the state seems set on building that at Halawa. We will certainly play there if that's the place the state decides to build it. If the state were to come forward and ask us, can you build something at UH Manoa? What I will tell you is we don't think that's about the current Clarence T.C. Ching trying to do it on the cheap with bleachers and temporary facilities. It might be possible to build an actual stadium at UH Manoa. We'd have a lot of work to do, and it wouldn't be another one of these $8,000 or $9,000 projects. It would be a real stadium. So we expect those discussions to be ongoing. We know there's a difference of opinion about what should take place at Halawa. There are people who believe that stadium facility is part of the economic driver for housing and other kinds of economic activity at that location. And the rail stop obviously is really useful for a stadium, even if we're going to be drawing in the low 20,000s rather than the 40,000s of the old Aloha Stadium. So we're actively participating in every conversation we can, and we'll, try to find a solution that works for the state as well as for UH football.
And moving forward, if those conversations continue to happen, I mean, what role or what do you think the University of Hawaii will play in that conversation of the development of the overall stadium, with the design elements, the things that maybe UH would specifically want in a football stadium? Is that conversations that you feel you'll be invited to have, and you'll be a part of that conversation? I mean, we recognize we just got back from Las Vegas, and being in that Allegiant Stadium and seeing just how beautiful that facility can be. I think a lot of fans were excited, thinking, "Hey, this could be Aloha Stadium in the future." What role do you think UH will play
Yeah,
in
that was
having
an amazing facility. That was my first time in it. So, I mean, I'll be frank. There's kind of two aspects of it. I think, we've been able to provide input for what UH wants to see physically in the stadium, where we haven't really had much penetration yet. And the media covered this in January. We were blindsided in December at the last game of the season. I think it was UNLV, in fact, our last home game, when we were told you can't have fans next year no matter what at Aloha Stadium. That's what put us on the fast track to do the work at Clarence T.C. Ching after examining all of the options we had for playing our home football games. And we provided them with what we think we need in a business deal. And we have no idea, with the current approach that's, been taken with the stadium authority, whether or not literally we would be able to afford to play at the project at the end of the day. We provided, and these are now public, pretty specific expectations around sharing of revenue associated with our home games. And we're pretty concerned to not be at the table for that part of the conversation, more so than the physical facilities, which are likely to be suitable. So we're trying to find our way forward to make sure that football can be the financial engine that supports the UH Manoa Division I athletics program, so we can continue to field a robust set of teams. This is the only big time sports in this state. You've got to go 2,500 miles for anything else other than high school sports here. And we take that part of our responsibility to the community seriously as well. So we are optimistic about those conversations in the months to come as all of this gets sorted out. We think, and we would like to believe optimistically, during this legislative session, the state will collectively settle on a path forward that will work out really well for UH Manoa football and the rest of our athletics programs.
Given how long things in Hawaii can take, how much longer do you think you will be using the temporary facility on campus?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, when we first talked about it, we said 2024. That does not seem realistic to believe there will be a stadium for us to play in fall 2024. I think we're going to have to see how this next, at this point, 6 months, time will tell. We are bullish on public-private partnerships. I'll just say we've got two pretty well on our way now with the RISE project at the Y, the Live, Learn, Work, Entrepreneur and Entrepreneurialism and Innovation Living Facility at the old Atherton Y facilities. We've got a new student housing project at the former National Marine Fisheries site that was turned over to us from the federal government. So we believe a stadium absolutely is something that the private sector can develop better than us and probably generate the operating revenue for than having the state in the middle of it. And our experience now is that the private sector can do these things faster than the public sector. So without giving you a date, our strategy would be to use a public-private partnership and move as quickly as possible.
Aside from the new stadium, there's also a number of new buildings and renovations that have happened on campus. For those who are alumni and haven't been on campus in a while and you walk back there, it really does look like a different spot. Can you give us updates on some of the developments that have been happening on the UH Manoa campus, specifically with those facilities?
Yeah, I think our most beautiful new facility right now is the new Life Sciences building. It is just spectacular with state-of-the-art labs. It was done as a design build project, so it came up much more quickly and effectively than our traditional, taking 6 years to plan, then another, tranche of money to design it, then another tranche of money to actually build it. What we do is if we know how much money we have, that's what we design and build to. And that's the same approach we would take with the stadium as well. One of the other aspects of the life science building that is a shift for some of our people is to not design for specific individuals who will be the first occupants, but rather design more generally and say, these are research pods and we will be allocating them to our productive researchers who need access to state-of-the-art facilities and who can do cutting-edge research, ideally supported with federal funds. But in general, the landscaping is cleaned up. The repairs and maintenance of our facilities has really caught up. The pandemic also gave us an opportunity, frankly, to do a lot of disruptive projects while people were not on campus. So repaving, those sorts of things. We demolished the old Snyder building and we're beginning planning for a new building there. But as I mentioned during our little pregame session, I've been on this campus a really long time, over 40 years. And I will just tell you, when I walk around this campus now, I do not believe it has ever looked better, just in terms of the landscaping, the painting, the maintenance. And we've got a lot of buildings that still need a lot of help. Shout out to my friends in Kuykendall Hall. In particular, that's one that's on our radar. And we need to do better. And we're looking at how to create facilities for all of those people, classrooms, faculty, facilities. But we're demonstrating that we absolutely can make progress. And whether it's a renovation or a new building, you can look at Gartley as a renovation, Edmondson as a as a renovation. Saunders needed a lot of external help. We have figured out how to accomplish these things in a timely and effective manner, or build new buildings. It's really looking good, and that's true across the UH system as well.
I want to ask you about something that's been in the news on social media. A number of women have come forward to allege allegations of being abused at a fraternity party off campus in Manoa. And I wanted to get your feedback on any investigation that might be going on. This was allegedly at a party off campus at Tau Kappa Epsilon in August. What can you tell us about that?
So I don't want to be defensive about this. These are our students, and we take their safety really seriously. That particular fraternity is actually not affiliated with UH at all. So we have no ability to sanction them. We just urge anybody who is a firsthand survivor of an actual event, please reach out. If you want to reach out to me, we have right now, and I didn't check this morning, but as of last week, we did not have a single firsthand survivor who was willing to give us facts that would enable us to launch an investigation within the university. We have lots of second-hand accounts of people telling us it happened to my friend. We see the social media postings. Please, if you know someone, we have confidential resources if they don't want to go public. If they are willing to help us and go on the record, whether it's with us, with the police, we've got to have a firsthand accounting to be able to engage our official processes. Otherwise, we still want to help. So if you are a survivor of one of these incidents and just want help, we have confidential resources who will not go any farther than talking with you and referring you to whether it's the Domestic Violence Action Center, our own health resources, our own counseling resources. We want to help, and we want to stop it.
We're running out of time here, but I quickly want to ask what commencement will look like for the different campuses moving forward with these new restrictions, and these new accommodations have been made. What will commencement ceremonies look like across the UH campus this year?
For this winter, we pretty much have hybrid kinds of mix of in-person and online across all of our campuses that do winter commencements. And I want to be really optimistic and believe that by spring we will have fully in-person commencements, but that will be subject to the guidance and permissions of state and county authorities.
And one quick last one from Christine is asking for food and drink besides water for the football game at Ching Field. Are there any updates on what might be allowed at the game?
I do not have an update today. I will just tell you that this is top of mind for us. And Athletic Director Matlin is in touch with Mayor Blangiardi on probably a daily basis to try and get approval. And we're ready to go if we get that permission.
All right, David Lassner, thank you so much for joining us here this morning. And
thanks for the opportunity. Yeah,
Aloha.
Appreciate it. Take care.
Good to see you. Well, great to see him and to hear about what's happening on campus. It sounds like they've had a lot of capital improvements with new buildings and facilities, and had an opportunity really to spruce things up and get things ready for the spring. He did say that right now distance learning is as a ratio of in-person versus distance learning. There's far more distance learning happening, but come the spring, they really hope to change that so that there will be more offerings in person, though online will still be part of the university system, it sounds like, permanently.
And one of the things, as he mentioned, and we've heard it from many guests who have come on this show, is how COVID in some ways has helped them to move the needle forward on the technology aspect and providing different opportunities for now these students who may be able to still attend classes remotely in different situations. And so the UH system continue to look for alternative options for that and finding a way to integrate that into their overall curriculum and how they will move forward as an educational institution. You also heard him breaking down the budget. Of course, UH getting a fairly substantial hit from the legislative budget overall last legislative session, and moving forward working through some of those cutbacks that have had to happen and some of the things that they've had to put in place in order to stay within their means.
Yeah, and interesting to hear his thoughts on the stadium and those conversations that are going on, really wanting to be more part of the conversation when it comes to the revenue share and trying to figure out those agreements. He did say that the current stadium is really a temporary fix and that a Division I football team can't play for a facility of just 9,000. So what does that look like going forward? They will be playing on campus like that, it does sound like, for at least the next few years as the state tries to figure out what they're going to do at Halava. But if, as the former governors, Abercrombie, Cayetano, and I'm forgetting now, Wahe'e have suggested, if a stadium is not part of those plans, what happens to UH and what happens to the football program? Where do they play? That is still an ongoing conversation.
Yeah, and as I said, I also just got back from Las Vegas. A lot of Hawaii people were in Las Vegas this weekend to support the team, and a lot of conversations were up there in Allegiant Stadium with many people saying that they like being in a new facility. They can't wait for the new Aloha Stadium to be built, and definitely something that will be part of the conversation of topics that we will probably cover on the show moving forward is the future of Aloha Stadium. Switching gears, on Wednesday, we will be welcoming a familiar face back onto the program to give us an update on the rail.
That's right. Heart Board Chair Colleen Hanabusa, of course, former Congresswoman as well, will be joining us. The last time we had her on, she had just taken the helm and was just getting a firsthand look at the books. Of course, she's very familiar with that project, having served on the board before. So she told us that she would give us an update, and we're taking her up on that offer. We're going to talk to her about, where the rail might go. You heard Lassner say there he would love it if the rail would go all the way to UH Manoa. He's certainly not alone in that, but what is it going to cost? The mayor, when we've had him on, said that if it doesn't pencil, they can't do it. So where does it stand right now? We'll get an update from Colleen Hanabusa right here, 10:30 on Wednesday.
We'll see you then. Aloha.
This episode of Spotlight Hawaii was brought to you by Chaminade University.